Boker Tov, everybody. Thank you for coming. Shavua Tov. We're learning the month of Elul, Lilu Nishmas Bas Yefega Bas Yisrael, Lilu Nishmas Levi Ben Yosef, for the refuah Sarah Bas Rachel Fega, and for the refuah of Leah Shoshana Bas Malia. And this week is sponsored by Sophia Bina Kerzner, for the refuah Shlema of her Abba Yidil Ben Rachel. Okay. Baruch Hashem, we got off to a really strong start last week. This new Sefer, Da Es Yeladecha, Know Your Children. And what we had begun discussing was the whole story of a funnel. That we have to create a funnel from us to our kinderlach if we want to feel like there's a chance for something to get in. If we want to feel like we can give something over to our children. Obviously, every single person, everyone wants to give something over to their children, but we spoke about the type of funnel that needs to be created in order for things to go inside. And we spoke about the different types of funnels, ones that start off very wide, and the pia is very wide, the opening is very wide, and the end of it is probably more narrow, because in order for it to reach our children, there must be a way for it to go in as big as we may think we are, to put it inside, and then for something small, so that they could feel like they could accept something. And it's also like this also with parents, with teachers. I see this a lot. I used to have a Rebbe in yeshiva that I remember he was such a big Talmid Chacham, so smart, mamish so smart. And the painful thing was for him was to create a funnel. And I remember that was like a very big, it was a very big ha'ara for me at a young age to see that you could know the whole Torah and you could really be a tzaddik and you could really be a Talmid Chacham, but you can't go into chinuch voluntarily, right? Parents also kind of voluntarily go into chinuch when they bring children into the world, but you can't really go into chinuch voluntarily, Emet middot, for real, unless this art of understanding how to create a funnel for students as well is also in place, and just as important as all the Torah that you want to give over to them. Many of you that have been in education know exactly what I'm talking about. You know exactly what I'm talking about. So therefore, we established the inyan of there needing to be a funnel, right? We established that. I also just want to say before we continue learning that there's certain classes that we go to, certain svarim that we learn, that it's okay to not daven while you're learning. It's okay. And it's okay to just have these things as thoughts, as a machshava. But there's certain shiurim that we go to that unless we're davening while we're learning, it hurts. Because I know that all of you, myself, this is Torah we want more than anything to implement. This is the Torah we want to implement. And the way that in Yiddishkeit works, especially when we're dealing with things that are more kasher to Pnimiyus Torah, unless they're davened over while they're being learned as well, it's limiting. So I'm just pushing you all to, as we're going along, to not just understand the Hebrew, right? And it's not the most complicated Hebrew in the Rav Schwartz's Sfarim. It's actually quite simple. But that we're davening while we're learning. We're davening while we're learning. I told the new chavre here in the kollel this coming year, this cycle, that they should know. They thought, they're here to learn, they're here to grow, they're here to be mashpia. But I think one of the not hardest, but one of the most, I would say, interesting things that they have. One of the tasks that they have is that they have to write tefillahs, not just send out divrei Torahs in booklets, but for this type of learning and this type of hashpah that we want in Am Yisrael, they're going to have to write tefillahs after every subject that we learn. So at the end we'll have hopefully a big likutei tefillahs going around from these guys that are learning, and I think that's very special. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but can someone turn down a little bit the air conditioning?
No way.
Huh? I know I didn't turn it on. I'm just saying, unless you're schwitzing. Not down in temperature, meaning
Up and
less. Yeah.
Wow.
You thought I meant colder. No. Afuch.
Before you start, so I have a question. Since you brought up chinuch, does he anywhere along the Sefer talk about how to work together? Because if you think about it, I mean, I've been thinking about it. When I was principal of school, I'd say Boker Tov to the boys at 8:15 in the morning, and say, see you tomorrow, anywhere from 4:30 to 6:30. So I spent more of their waking hours
than their parents.
Of course. So, I mean, the kesher is so chashuv to work together.
Betach. Well, this sefer is not called Da'et Horecha. Meaning, it's not a sefer on the kids, that they have to know their parents. It's Da'as Yiladecha. But I think that, Tal, what you're bringing up is very important, that hopefully all of this is addressing what you said, that this is not a sefer to just be like, I'm here, they're here, let's keep on figuring out how much better I do this, but let's figure out through the funnel how we could start, Bezrat Hashem, meeting in the place that we can meet at and grow from there. So, yes, the answer is yes, 100%. Okay. Yeah, of course.
Just I was thinking about, I got it significant, how the funnel starts off this wide, and then obviously has to go narrow. And then the whole idea of that is to get to the path of Emet, which starts with narrow and then becomes wide, and then maybe that can help us to use the funnel, that we have to make it narrow, but we know we're going to get to that
wider place.
While we're going on that side.
Betach. But that's not a question. That's just that's.
It was just like a thought, but
yeah. Well, the question is how.
Mm-hmm.
That's the shiur.
Was just thinking weird. Like it was just a thought that, but like a question, there's significance in that.
The child's significance in it, isn't it?
As us knowing our child, or as a teacher, as a parent, like if there's significance in that to help us, like.
Betach, but you just said the key word, and that's the name of the sefer. You cannot create. There's no standard funnel. That's why it's called Da et Yeladecha. That's why it's so important here that we can create, we can make statements, we could make proclamations on the importance of everything we're saying, but without learning how to know our children, and even that there's no sefer that could tell you exactly how you can know your child, you could have the most beautiful funnel that will have no shaykhs to your child. Chas v'shalom.
And each one
God forbid.
individually.
Huh?
And each
Exactly.
child
Each child individually as well. Nachon. All right. Yeah.
This woman who had a large family, and every Thursday she let one child stay up late and help her prepare for Shabbos, so that she had this special time with each one that they could talk about anything.
Well, that's a very special thing. I have a thing with my kids, is that I take them to concerts individually throughout the year. But then I realized and they all, because the little kids hear, oh, you went to his concert, I want to go to his concert. That's not going to create the funnel for that. That kid needs something else. Maybe it needs like, I don't know, if Barney was coming to town for, something. I don't know, Barney, whatever it is. Nachon, that special one-on-one time is very, very, very chashuv. Very, very chashuv. Very, very, very chashuv. Nachon meod. Okay, let's begin. We have over here, now we're continuing exactly where we stopped off last time. Tashtit lahavarat chinuch, an infrastructure in order to give over the chinuch that we want to give over to our children. Le'or ha'amur, based on what we said before, she'elat ha'she'eloti mahu oto kli mashpech שבאמצעותו נוכל לחנך את ילדינו. It's wonderful. We came up with a great word, a catchy word, a funnel. What is that funnel? What does that mean? We're using it, but what is that word? What is that word? What does that mean? It's like we sometimes feel good because we come up with like a sophisticated word that will make us feel better and more mature about our approach to parenting. But what does that word even mean? What is a mashpech in this context? What is the funnel, right? He's not letting us, I'm telling you, he's not letting us off the hook, this Sefer. He's not just telling us very, smart words. He's going to say, great, now we know a word, now we have to understand what that actually means. Yeah.
No, so now I'm going to dig in a little bit deeper.
He didn't even say anything. It's
So in Kuf Mem Dalet it says, Mahu ha'adam, what is man? Man is the question what. In other words, animals and nobody else can ask questions of what, or why, or any of those. So that's the mashpech has to be connected to that what. In other words, we are this kind of family, we are these kind of people.
Right.
And so the what has to be actually very specific to the mashpech, the family, the vibe, and the kid.
100%, נכון. Okay. בהסתכלות פשוטה נראה, when you look at it pretty simply, it seems, כי מכיוון שבאמצעות מחשב הגרידא, לא ניתן להעביר לילדים מאומה. By thinking alone and coming up with a lot of thoughts, and thus making you feel very responsible, very chazak, זה לא מספיק, just by thinking. אם כן, I remember one time Rav Shlomo was invited to a symposium on a 3-day, like a 3-day gathering on prayer by like somewhere like deep thinkers from Eastern thoughts up in Northern California in the 70s. And he was the last one invited to this 3-day festival. And he asked the people that picked him up in the airport, they were driving him to the retreat, what have you been doing since the beginning of this retreat? So they were talking about all the different seminars, all the different classes and lectures about prayer. So then he said, okay, but when did you guys pray? He said, we didn't yet. It was the three-day seminar on prayer. So, but when did you actually pray? So, saying you could think and think and think of a lemaisa, there's got to be, well, he's going to explain what the lemaisa has to be. Because we can discuss and discuss and discuss, and I do encourage you. We had this a few years ago. One time there was enough holy chutzpah by the woman to do this on their own, is that after the shiurim, there was his own internal WhatsApp group, because that's what everyone needs is another WhatsApp group right now. And they were discussing how lemaisa, what we had learning, it was a Rabbi Nachman shiur, what we had been learning inside, what lemaisa they were able to draw into their lives. Here it's mamash chashuv that there's a lemaisa. So therefore he says, Im ken nisharu shnei derachim bilvad leha'avarat hadvarim me'amechanech lachanich. There are only 2 ways to pass over, to give over things from the mechanech to the chanich. Aleph, alidei maisa. One is action, klomar, באמצעות דוגמה אישית של המחנך שהיא עשייה. We all know this, personal example. Like, coming into a room and saying, there will be no screaming in this house, is exactly the opposite of what he's speaking about, right? It's always דוגמה אישית. We all have tasted that once or twice or 3,000 times in our life. That's one. So it has to be a maisa of דוגמה אישית. But bet is באמצעות הדיבור. שהמחנך מסביר את הדברים לחניך, to explain to your child in a way that they can hear your shita, to actually verbalize it. Now, quite often we think they can't hear, they can't understand, they're not on the level. Well, it depends on how you're saying it. It's true. If you're going to come to your children and give them a whole spiel, al pi dibbur, explaining what you learned in a shiur and then taking it to the next level. Of course not. But really, we know that one must believe that your kid chaps way more than you realize. They understand much more than we think they do. Of course, they pick up on things much more than we realize as well. But even the dibbur, they could hear if there's siyata d'shmaya, they could actually hear, not to justify your actions, but to be able to explain to them, you know why we're doing this? Do you know why we're acting like this? But quite often, we really are under the assumption, 2 things. Aleph, they can't hear, they're kids. Bez, it's not for them to know. They have to be on it's not for them to understand why we do what we do. And he's going to really, really like take a stab at that, mamash. Because there's a big opening when a parent realizes that if with the right tevuna, with the right tefillah, and the right davening, and the right siyata d'shmaya and rachmanis from Hashem, that I can actually give over to my child verbally how we're choosing to build our home, how we're choosing to have our relationship. It's an amazing, amazing thing. Parents that are privileged to have tasted this, children that are privileged to have tasted this, they grew up with something completely different. Their experience of the home and the things that they then take on have a much more grounded tashtit, infrastructure for their lives. It's as if they could actually they actually understand why how and the rhythm of their own life. The rhythm of their own life. Ulam. But we still have to remember there's a pa'ar, there's a gap. You don't come to your child and say, I really would like to explain to you exactly how I learned the shita, and now I'm going to give this over because in shiur we learned that you understand much more than I think you. That's not going to work either. It's not the chap either. That's the mashpech, you understand? That's the funnel. That's the translation of it into lemaisa with our children. Ula mikevan shekayam par ben hatfisa harechava shel haorim לתפיסתו הצרה של הילד, there is a gap between the perception, the wide perception that a parent has to a more narrow perception that a child has. אם כן, עדיין נותר לברר לנו לברר, מהי הנקודה המקשרת ומגשרת על פער זה. What is the point that he says connects and bridges the gap? What is it exactly? What is this thing that connects the gap that, it's not a gap, there's nothing wrong that there's a gap. That's the way Hashem created us, in terms of our ages and in terms of our life experiences. However, the avoda is to figure out, well, what is the nikuda over here that my child and I can meet through that really brings this big gap that's a result of age, that's a result of experience, life experience, and bring it closer together. What's the gesher? What is that place? He's going to explain this a bit more. כלומר, אילו התפיסה של האב והאם הייתה דומה לתפיסת הילדים, if the perception of parents was more or less similar to a child's perception, once in a while it's like that actually, that's not a good thing.
Wait, what was it? I missed the word in English.
Which one? Which word?
If the perception was more or less what?
Similar, dome. Thanks for asking. Similar. If it was, that's what I said. It's sometimes you go into a house, say it's a young mother that had a kid at a young age, and sometimes you don't know who the mother or daughter is. Did it ever happen to you? I'm talking about on a seicha level, right? It happened in our house. Oh, you? It's all open here, Chaver. It's all open, right? If the perception of life that a parent has is similar to what the child has, then there he says, "Harei she'ayinu tzrichim gesher tzar yachasit." Then we would probably need a more narrow bridge because you don't have to. It could be exactly what it is, and that would be enough. Ulam kechol she'amerchak ben ha'orim v'yeladim gadel. But the more that the distance between parents and children is larger, בייחוד כאשר מדובר בהורים מתבגרים, הורים מתבגרים over here in this context means older parents, שברמה מסוימת, on a certain level, הם מנותקים מתפיסת הילדות. They're disconnected from תפיסת הילדות. What do you think that means? What are they disconnected from?
Being so far away from being a youth that they don't understand. And again, I'm coming back as an educator, you could very often tell when a child was of older parents because the way they interacted with the child.
It doesn't necessarily mean that every time there's a parent to a child to older parents, it's like this, but just because of, it's nothing bad that they necessarily did, it's just life, what they've been through in life and how many years that they've already haven't been around children, and the distance in that also is mashpia on things.
I mean, you could say it with Olim and their Israeli kids. Right?
Explain, what do you mean?
I don't know, I feel like sometimes, I mean, I'm not such an old Ole, but I feel like sometimes my 9-year-old comes home with like songs or different things that I have no clue, and I like have to ask him, like, this appropriate, is this good, like, I don't know what's going on really.
Right.
Or like, I'm not reading every book before she reads it, because it's like gonna take me like
Right.
2 months, you know? So I just ask, is this author good, like,
Right.
And that's when they're young. When
Right.
they're older, it's can I sleep on the beach?
Right.
You're asking your child to do all the Israeli Hebrew work for you.
For you, right. That's already another
Because
level.
they've become parentified because
Nachon.
yeah.
You know, sorry, you're bringing up a very important point. I remember when we made Aliyah, I was nine, and I grew up in an area in Los Angeles that I probably would not have been allowed to be outside the house by myself past 5 p.m. till I was 15, right? Not that it was a shady area. It was just the general way of life was not like outdoor, right? We come to Eretz Yisrael. My friends come and pick me up my first Friday night for what's called P'gishat Shevet. By the sniff, by the Bnei Akiva sniff. What's P'gishat Shevet? All the kids meet at a certain place, right? When do they come and pick me up? 9:15. My parents like, what's going on over here, right? And what's the curfew? My parents said 9:45. The other kids they were old Olim. They were already in Eretz Yisrael for 2 years. I remember one specific friend. So when we left the house, I said, I have half an hour. He looked at me and started laughing. He said, what? It's like, Shlomo, this is 4th grade. I said, 11. So that could be a whole separate parenting shiur of the mashpech of the, right? The funnel that, we're laughing, but it's actually, there's a lot in what you're saying. It's a very important thing. It's a very important thing. And then we'd go back to visit in the States, and it was like, it went back to like, you can, mashu kazeh, right. It's very, I don't know if it was like this in other areas and where you grew up in the States, but it was kids at night. It wasn't a thing. It wasn't this, right?
We had a student who came in grade 11 to our school in Yerushalayim from South Africa, where you didn't walk anywhere.
Yeah.
Even during the day.
Even during the
Right,
day, you were
right.
driven, and all of a sudden he's going to take a bus from Beit Shemesh
Right.
to Yerushalayim. He was like in
It's
panic
true.
mode.
It's true. Listen, when our kids started taking buses on their own, that was the equivalent of like when parents give their children the keys to the car for the first time. It's a whole, whole different thing. I'm not even talking about Chalila, terrorism. I'm just saying bichlal, that freedom. It's a completely different mahalach in chinuch. Harei shebeofen tiv'i, naturally, yeshno netek kimat muchlat. There's almost a complete netek, disconnect. Between what? Ben tfisatam habogeret letfisatam hayildutit shel hachanich. Between just the perception of life, between an older parent and the perception of a child. Now, it's not only by older parents, okay? It's not only by older parents. He's pointing out an inyan that may be shayach, but it's not, it's bichlal. It's like, it can be this across the board, really no matter what the ages are.
Our kids think we're from the olden days.
And, right, and I always think like if you knew how much we're not, but they're right, actually. Well, me, not you, I'm saying. Barur lachalutin, and therefore it's totally clear. Ki horim, listen to this. כי הורים אשר ינסו לדבר ולחנך את ילדם בשפה בוגרת, יחטיאו את המטרה. They mean well, but parents that choose, after misunderstanding this chap, and they will choose to speak to their children on their level of their language, like their level of safa, they'll be missing the point. מכיוון ששפה זו היא למעלה מרמתו. It's just the language. You could give over that. You could say the same thing in 2 different ways. You could say the same exact thing in 2 different ways. But what do you want? You want your words to be hamitkabel or not? You want your words to be heard? and understood, forget respected for a second. We're not there yet. Do you want there to be comprehension? That's what we're talking about. We're not even talking about how do I instill within my children kibud avaim. We're not there yet. We're not there yet. We're just speaking bichlal. In order for there to be the talkage that needs to happen, how are you choosing to speak? Rav Weinberger once said, and I remember Shabbos afternoon shiur, and he was talking about these inyanim. He said, I was speaking about this inyan of learning how to speak to your children in a way that they can hear, but not just to sound like a professor, but in a way that they could really understand. So he said, one guy came to him afterwards, he said, Rebbe, you wouldn't believe it. I went on the ground, I went on the floor, and I was also, like my child was having a tantrum, and I also was, pretending to have a tantrum, and I was talking to them like the words that I want to tell them while we're throwing balls at the wall. And he said, that's not what we're talking about. That's not the funnel. That's not the funnel. It has to meet at a certain place. It's a very big avoda, but you have to understand, Hashem believes that you could have that, because otherwise He wouldn't give you this child. There's no way. Hashem doesn't give us children that I have to be someone else in order for them to receive what I want to give them over. Like Hashem every child that Hashem trusts us with is that Hashem believes the funnel for this kid and how they need to hear what we're hoping they will hear can be found. It's just a matter of doing an avoda. That's the work that we're here for. Yes, Ava.
You're talking about like a different generation, age gap, or maybe it doesn't have to be an age gap between parents and children. But I remember as a young mother, the age gap is 22 years between me and my oldest daughter. But being the 22-year-old, okay, I would tell her, don't touch this, right? It's a little bit, not knowing that the child doesn't understand the word don't. So every time I would say don't do something, all they heard was do something. Even just maybe I don't think it's an age gap thing. I think it's just understanding how a child understands things in order to be able to choose the right words that you want to say so that they can understand what you're trying to tell them.
But each child has that one word that they don't understand. For each, you could have, Baruch Hashem, many children, and each child misunderstands one word.
Mm-hmm. That's why our kids are our school. Through each child, you learn a new way of doing it.
But you're bringing an example of the don'ts, right? It's
Maybe
also but it's also with the do's. That's just as important.
Mm-hmm.
I think when we speak about chinuch, quite often we tend to naturally speak about the warnings that we're trying to go over to our children, but it's also the beauty that we want to go over to our children. It works the same way. I want to give over to my child the absolute bliss of the beauty of Shabbos, right? Also there's words that they just don't understand what you're saying. They could understand it if the right word was found. What middot do you think you'd need in order to find out what are the words that they need to hear? From all the middos that we have, what middot do you think? By the way, that's always the right answer for any question. I'm just saying, that's always the right answer. Always. And I'm not saying you're wrong, 100%. Beto?
Humility.
Humility before what? That's also the right answer all the time, but in this context, what does humility mean?
I really think that it's important to, your children need to trust you as well as a teacher or as a parent. They have to trust you, and they have to know that you respect them.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you respect them and trust, and you show them that they can trust you, then they're open.
Right.
Then they're more open.
Nachon.
Before you have that, that's like everything as a teacher. And parent, I think it's everything also. And it's the same thing I always tell my children. I'm going to respect you and who you are and try to understand what you need, and you, in turn, need to respect me. And then we have the funnel too.
Right. So recently, I'm just going to harp on this. Recently, one of our daughters asked my wife and I the same question. And I couldn't tell if it was a trick question or not. Because she's so deep and smart. So I didn't answer. I was avoiding the answer for a little bit, and then I said something, and I wasn't sure. I'm still not sure what it is. If I was mechaven right, she said, "What's the one thing in the world I could do that would, what was the lashon? That would disappoint you?" And I couldn't sense if she was basically asking if she did something, and she wanted to know if it falls under that category or not. So my answer was a little bit. I want to go back. I want to go back to it with her because I don't know if I've been thinking about it a lot. I said that if you didn't believe in yourself, that would disappoint me, right? But that actually, I don't think. I'm not so shalem with that answer. Because I said, because I trust you. I trust you. And if you didn't trust yourself, and if you didn't believe in yourself, that would disappoint me. But yours was much better, I think. You said something much better than me. It was more mechuvan. But I want to go back to the question I asked. What's the midah that you think you need in order to discover how to talk to your children in a way that they can understand more than you would generally think they could understand? On a midah. Just a midah. It's like a word.
You need to listen.
What's that?
You need to listen to them.
Active listening.
Yeah.
Active listening. Okay.
For me, I think it's Emet.
The midah of Emet.
Yeah.
Very,
because
very chazak.
I was once advised by Rabbanit Zuckerman, you know her, Hubert Zuckerman.
I think I know her husband. He's a big
Okay.
Rav, yeah?
I had the privilege of having her as a high school mechanehet, and she told me the kids know more than you think they do.
Right.
So you don't even have to say anything. They're watching you. So I think that if you do things out of a place of emet and simcha, then their message is getting across.
So the funnel is just created by what he said. Ma'aseh. That's the first one. Remember he said over there? There's two ways for the funnel to be created. So that's very deep.
So ma'aseh and simcha has to go together, because if you're doing it and not having a good time doing it, they're not going to follow you.
Oh, 100%. I always say, if you want to give over to your children the excitement of Shabbos, you don't have to say a word, but is this what you look like on Friday afternoon? Right? And that is the first thing that he said. That's al yedei ma'aseh. And then he says, okay, there's also dibbur. So by ma'aseh, so you're saying the midah is, I don't know if you're saying emet or simcha, but they're together. Chazak me'od. Nachon. I mean, children that have all the ashiras of learning a lot of Torah, but the soundtrack of Friday afternoon was not. Shabbos is coming. It's a different the funnel that's then going in, and you're saying to yourself, I don't understand. I show them how much we dedicate ourselves to Shabbos and how much they're learning dedication and mesirus nefesh. Like that didn't go over. It's like a kid will pick up much more on excitement towards something that parents display than more the fear and trepidation that I'm chas v'shalom not going to make it in the 18 minutes. And it's the same thing when it comes to Rosh Hashanah and Tzlichos, Yom Hadin. These things are also like. Do your kids grow up with a vision of the Sudim of Sekes of Yom Kippur being like this, look what we're privileged to do? Or more like, okay, did I, drink enough water, grapes, watermelon, What's that funnel? So the funnel of emes and simchas. That's why a Yiddish mama, a parent, a father, has to be plugged into the emes of Yiddishkeit, to understand the pnimius advarim of what Yiddishkeit is all about, and from there go and act, or then speak. And the child chaps that amazingly. Anyone else want to say a word of a certain midah you think that might be essential here for discovering the mashpech?
Patience.
In the same second. Middot Savlanut.
I feel like we're very quick to pounce of teaching what we know is right.
Right, fast.
If we stop
Yeah.
in a parenting class with Leva, should pause before you reflect before, like just stop for a second, just see what's going on.
Nachon. Okay. So let's continue inside. We're on the top over here. ברור לחלוטין. כי הורים אשר ינסו לדבר ולחנך את ילדם בשפה הבוגרת יחטיאו את המטרה מכיוון ששפה זו היא למעלה מרמתו ודומה הדבר למי שלוקח כוס קטנה ושופך לתוכה כמות מים יתרה מגבול הקיבולת שלו. What ends up happening is that you're basically taking a small cup, that's the child, and you're pouring in what is in your cup, and there's such an overflowing of everything. The kid, nothing can really be kept in that cup because it's not a kelî kibbul. Kelî kibbul means a vessel of reception that it can't be put inside. Nothing can stay in there. And there's just an overwhelming feeling of this is overflowing. And then what happens? Check out. You're checked out legamre. Check out. Why? Not because there's nothing in there. It's just the way that it's going in there, it's overflowing, not in the kosi revaya kind of way, like, wow, so much. I'm getting so much from my parent. I'm getting nothing. I'm checked out.
In the school, when they had a meeting once, and they gave an example of a kid who comes to his parents and he says, "Abba, I'm not a gay," right? So the father, like Pat, started explaining, and he's like, what words am I gonna use, and how am I gonna say it? And after he gives this whole spiel about it, the kid says, "Mavet," and you're like, oh my God. like really, you have to be in the place where your child is.
It's interesting that when you say that, because when you said it, like, what middot you need, I kept thinking curiosity. But it's not one of the sphero middot.
I didn't mean sphirot middot. Yeah. Oh,
That's what I didn't say.
sorry. I didn't mean that. Yeah. I didn't mean sphirot, like
so
netzach.
To ask, so what made you ask that question?
Right.
Try to find out where they're coming from.
Right. But that is such a great example. Salmave, right? That's the context.
But what happens also when you talk to your child, Beramama alav, he doesn't know how to communicate with his peers because that's the language he's getting and it's not their language.
נכון. נמצא שההורים חייבים לבנות מעין גשר בינם ובין ילדיהם. There's a bridge that needs to be created between you and your child, שבו יוכלו להעביר את החינוך באמצעות מעשה ודיבור, בכדי שיתקבלו אצל הילד כדבעי. Do you know what that word means? כדבעי? כדבעי in Aramaic means כמו שצריך. באי means צריך. כדבעי. Like the way the Lubavitch Rebbe sent shluchim, and he had a very clear message to them. I think we said this last week. He said, you're going to go out, you're going to do shlichus, you're going to go to places no Jew has ever stepped on in order to share Torah. And there were 2 words the Rebbe said to all of them, and he keeps on saying it when you listen to how to carry on his message. Be'ofen hamitkabel, be'ofen hamitkabel. The Rebbe was saying this to shluchim that we're going to turn people onto Yiddishkeit. So if you're not going to say the words be'ofen hamitkabel, someone knows Torah, someone knows halacha, they'll go somewhere. What are they going to say? They'll say exactly what they know, how they know it, and whoever wants to be part of this, fine. The Rebbe was not interested in that. Be'ofen hamitkabel, in a way that can be received. So the real shliach would then say, Rebbe, please teach me the art of learning what that means. How do you know? How do you develop the trait of discovering what be'ofen hamitkabel is? Right? It's not just enough to know, the way they need to be received. Okay. Now that word, that statement, tzarich iyun gadol. So that's true about shluchim. Our parents have the same avoda as well. Hashem, how can they receive it? how can they receive what I want to give over to them? How can they receive what you want me to give over to them is even a much better question. We have a lot of things we want to give over to our children. It may not be what Hashem wants us to give over to our children. So how do we give over to our children what you want us to give over to our children, that you entrust us with? How do we give that over to our children?
That's what this means, this paragraph?
That's just because of the last word, kibbul. בכדי שיתקבלו אצל הילד kibbul, כמו שצריך. ומפאת חשיבות העניין, and because this is so important, נוסיף ללבן את החשיבות הרבה של אותו גשר. We'll continue to clarify the importance of this bridge. בדרך כלל, כאשר אנחנו עוסקים בנושא החינוך, usually when we speak about חינוך, הנטייה היא לעסוק במסרים ובתכנים של החינוך. So we generally are dealing with messages and content of חינוך. ואכן, אף העיסוק בנושא זה חשוב מאוד. Of course, this is very important. אולם כאשר מעבירים מים ממקום למקום באמצעות צינור שיש בו חור, הרי שהמים לא יעברו ליעד בשלמות. ואם אין צינור, המים כלל לא יעברו. What did he just say here?
It's like that kid game. You're in a line and you talk from the beginning to the end. At the end, the message is totally different. So,
A broken telephone, yeah.
It reminds me, just like you have such a message that you want to give over.
That's why he's saying here, we will worry, we will deal about the messaging. We will. But if you're playing broken meaning you have to figure out how to play fixed telephone or whatever it's called, right? Is that what it's called? Is that what you're talking?
Somehow the message gets lost a lot of times.
So you're saying, forget about the messer for a second, because you may be under the assumption, the messer isn't strong enough because it didn't go through. He's saying the messer, the tochen of chinuch, is important. What's more important than that? Figuring out a way to make sure that the funnel, that the tunnel, that the pipe is intact. That's more important. You could have the greatest, I always say this to artists, to musicians. Whenever they call to discuss about how to be matzliach in music, like a general, just how does it work? And I always tell them that you can have the greatest album, you could have the greatest recorded material in a studio, the greatest. But if the funneling system, zot omeret, if the link towards getting it to the world is not shayach, it's not there, or you're using technology that they used 20 years ago, which is how he relates to the parenting stuff, then you may have the greatest tochen, you may have the best album, and no one's going to hear it. So I always tell them, I hate to break your heart, but how much money did you pay for the studio? So, to really put out a strong album, like a good album, unless you really figured out a way to minimize costs, but it's probably like $40,000-$50,000 for like a really strong album, 60 maybe. I hate to break it to you, but at least 2/3 of that money has to now be put on promotion, on that. Like, what, are you crazy? I said, well, let me ask you a question. Did you go to a shiur on chinuch so that you know the better way? This is the equivalent, right? Or did you go to a shiur on chinuch in order to figure out how to give over what you're learning? Did you go and record an album that you can enjoy in your house? If so, en baya. But it can't be. If you have a burning desire to share something with the world, it can't be that you're going to be happy just sitting at home enjoying, and your heart will be so filled knowing there's such good music being recorded here. And that's why at least 2/3 of the budget that you put towards the actual album has to be put also into getting it out into the world. But that's what here we're referring to, the gesher. So what is Rav Schwartz telling us? We could have the greatest tactics, we could have the meser and the tochen of chinuch Torah. But, and this is something people just don't put as much attention to, because they think that being a good parent means that I have the knowledge in terms of content of chinuch. We'll get there, he's saying. But this is first. If there's a hole in the Tzínor, it's the same thing as an album. If there is something like a glitch in the promotion, then as l'shem ma'ayakol, what was it all worth it? So you were home, you're enjoying your knowledge, you're enjoying your music, and it could be amazing, it can be so smart and divine, but everything in this business is about giving over. And how do we know this? Pirkei Avos begins by saying, Moshe kibel Torah misinai, and what's the next word? Most important word in Torah Shebaal Peh. Umesara liYehoshua. The greatness of Moshe Rabbeinu was not so much that he received the Torah. The real greatness is that, and it's not that he was a good teacher either, because then it should have said, Moshe kibel Torah misinai velimda liYehoshua. Rather, what is it? What's said? Umesara liYehoshua. By our Chevra, we always say you want to give over some Torah, not do you want to teach Torah. Do you have something strong to give over? So that means, that doesn't just mean do you have something smart to say, it means do you have a way that you can give over the smart thing that you want to say?
And what do we know about their relationship?
About who? Moshe and Yehoshua.
They're very, very close.
It's like a zivug.
Right.
Like a zivug.
Sinor is the relationship.
Absolutely. Not necessarily the tochen. Nachon. Umesara. Giving over. We don't teach Yiddishkeit, we give over Yiddishkeit. You don't teach love, you give over love. All the things we want to give, all the things we want our children to have to be funneled through the art of giving over, of umesara liYehoshua. And then what does it say after that? Then that was the shita of chinuch. Because then what does it say after that? Yeshua l'skenim, meaning then it was able, that initial relationship was right, healthy, receptive, fire. And then afterwards, everything kept on flowing. And we're sitting here thousands of years later, not because Moshe Rabbeinu was a smart teacher, but he was a brilliant, humble, patient, talk about patience, the most patient educator who understood that it's about giving over. And if you want to give something over, you make sure before you have all the chokhmas to say that the tzínor is intact, that there's no holes in the tzínor. And that's going to be a big avoda here. How do you figure out if the tzínor has holes or not? That's a big avoda. Well, first, how do you figure out if there are holes? That's first. And then, if there are holes, how do you patch it? Right? You don't want to lechatchila put a patched, put a hole, a tzínor that has holes. You have to look at it. You have to understand what you're dealing with. And then when you discover that there are holes, and guess what? There will be. But then the avoda is, so then, is it patching holes or is it creating a new tzínor, which we'll see? Let him, he has a shita. Everyone here has a shita, but I'm saying he also has a shita, right? Whose hand was up? Yes.
Yeah, so I actually have the privilege that my kids told me, you're not giving it over right.
Wow.
Yeah, well, this was, after their father wasn't giving anything over anymore. And
I just want to explain, that's because he wasn't in this world,
yes.
not because he was a bad person.
Yeah. And I finally said to them, I said, look, you guys know me. I'm not Abba, obviously. I said, I want you to presume that I'm giving it over from the heart, even though I sound more scholarly and academic. And I really tried to get them to understand it's a different sinor, but the message is actually still the same. The love is the same, and thank God. But it was...
That's very, very deep. That's very special.
But
That
they
goes back
told
to the
me...
dibbur.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that they could say to you,
That's right.
that's a very big inyan.
Right.
And it takes...
That's because they felt safe in the relationship.
That's because they felt safe in the relationship, and they know that the middot of humility is found by their mother, because, in old European Jewry, if a kid said that to their parents, but that's part of the door. Meaning, it's not like let's let them be mechutzaf. No, that's not what we're saying. Where you have that today, and there's a voice in the world of chinuch that says just have to accept the chutzpah because that's the door. No, that's not what we're saying. Back then, if a kid said that to a parent, sometimes you meet chavra, they have something from the old door that's really, really beautiful. There are things from back then that are beautiful. I'll give you an example, but then I'll go right back to this. We did Sheva Brachas last week for, my cousin married off a son, Baruch Hashem. So we did Sheva Brachas here. And it's a very rich, cultured Sephardi family. My cousin is Yemenite, and he married I think they're Temanim, right? I think he married a Yemenite girl. And my cousin's Yemenite because my aunt, my mother's sister, married a Temani. So the father of the Kala was here for Sheva Brachas. And he came up to me after the Sheva Brachas, and he said to me something it was so beautiful. Like, some people will hear this and be like, oh, who does he think he is? I thought this was the highest thing in the world. There was such trust between the daughter and the father based on the statement that he said. He said to me, because I said to him, wow, אני בטוח שהבת שלך היא פשוט זהב, כי הבן של הבן דוד שלי הוא צדיק, הוא זהב טהור. Right? I'm sure your daughter is gold. I don't know her, but I'm sure she's gold only because my cousin's son, the chassan, is mamish. His kid is so refined, and he's so beautiful. And he says, אתה אומר לי, הרבה רצו אותה, he says, אבל אני בחרתי אותו. So you would say, in today's 2025 brain, how could you, who are you to choose for her? Now, I'm sure she also had something to do with the choosing, obviously, right? But the way that he said it was like, that's something beautiful from what we once had, right? But back in the day, for a child to feel like they can tell their parent, I need you to change the way that you want to be the best at what you want to be at, right? That's really what their kids are saying. Like, they're saying, Mom, this is more important to you than anything, and I want it to work. Therefore, I need you to give it over to me in a different way. Back then, the old school could never hear such words. The door that we're in, it's a beautiful, amazing thing. If that's the establishment, and like you said, it's because, what do you say? Because they felt trust in that, right?
Yeah, they felt safe.
Safe, right? Because they're saying, we're on the same team here. This is teamwork. This is communication. They want to hear this. Like, my mother wants to be able to hear this. But they can only do that from creating this environment of safety, nachon. Okay. Nimtzenu lemedim. We're just going to finish up over here. Very presumptuous of me to give you 4 pages, but I'll take the pages back afterwards unless you want to hold on to them. nimtzenu lemedim. שהעברת התכנים של החינוך לילד הינה שלב שני. Content giving over, right, is the second שלב. קודם לכך חובה לבנות תשתית מסודרת. But before that, there must be a תשתית מסודרת, an orderly infrastructure to build upon. שעליה נוכל לבנות את השלב הבא, that we could build upon that. שהוא העברה מההורים לילדים. וזוהי נקודת הגשר בין המחנך לחניך. This is the bridge talk we're talking about. לאור הדברים האלה, ברור הדבר שתחילה עלינו להסביר ולהגדיר מהו הגשר בין המחנך לחניך וכיצד בונים אותו. We're going to learn how to build this bridge. ורק לאחר מכן נוכל לדון בחינוך עצמו. And only after we'll talk about actual חינוך. ואם כן, בדברים להלן נעסוק בדברים שהם בבחינת טרום חינוך. You know what טרום means? Pre. חינוך. כיצד נבנית התשתית שתהווה לאחר מכן כלי לחינוך. How we will build that infrastructure, which will be a vessel for chinuch. Now, I'm going to ask the obvious question, which is the elephant in the room. Is this a sefer for people before they become parents?
I was gonna say, we got nowhere. I got no bridge, I can't do chinuch yet, I have a picture, that's it.
Okay, well, we're starting
That's
with
good start.
something, huh? So why? I mean, most of you are
It should be
parents,
before
or so.
and during, because we're gonna make
I mean,
mistakes.
you always, I think you need to learn the same thing like again and again and again.
So I'll tell you something. You know who buys books on knowing your children? Parents. So I just wanted to remove the chashash that you all are, that thought that you all are. Yeah.
most people say, like, I'm sorry, I'm always gonna be that person.
I know.
You have to learn how to drive before you drive. You have to learn, we take Lamar's
No,
classes,
right.
we take,
But I
Right.
want to say something. We
I
also
agree.
have
I agree.
maternal instincts. So like we're not starting from zero.
No way.
Like Hashem gave us instincts and like deep, like a deep knowing.
Adi bina. Yeah.
So like when we have a baby, the same way like animals have babies and they know what to do. Like we, even before everything, we know how to.
And that's still there in every shlav of parenting. Zatomeret, you can't. I just wanted to. That's why I wanted to call it out. You can come out of this and saying, we're going to start learning about things. Trom chinuch. My kids are teenagers, or my kids are 7, or I already wrote like 30 books about all my mistakes. Now I'm gonna learn about. There's something inherent, innately in. It's not just. Also, Abbas have something too. You know. no, I know. It's in parents, right? In the Alter Rebbe speaks about this in the Tanya. Wow, the way he speaks about this in the Tanya. I hope we get to it. We're there. This is not a shiur to walk out of here and saying, wow, I blew it. Hopefully I can make it better for my children's children. Ma pitom. זה בכלל לא הכיוון. All the things we're learning are available to us this moment, right now, mamash right now. So just to remove that chashash that maybe someone's thinking, זה בכלל לא ככה. And Bezrat Hashem, as you can see, the topic of the next subject, אהבה טבעית ואהבה מותנית לילדים, that's something you could pick up on in the moment at any age, which means natural love versus what's ahava mutnet? Conditional love. That's where things begin, and that can be conditioned like t'nai. That can be plugged into at any shlav of parenting. It may be harder for certain people that have already created a world of conditional love for their children, even though they'd never admit it. Or they'd blame that, they'd say, well, that's what I got from home. Okay, so mazel tov. We're here to stop that mahalach. Okay, so we'll continue. Wait, when's Rosh Hashanah? Okay, the kids are in school next Sunday? Okay, we'll continue next week, B'ezrat Hashem.